know that X2, X-Men United, is no perfect movie. So in X-Men United, the X-Men find themselves on the run after Colonel William Stryker, played by Brian Cox, leads an assault on the X-Mansion and captures many of the students as well as Professor Xavier. And when he decides to build his own version of Cerebro for a hypnotized Xavier to kill every mutant in the world, the X-Men must team up with Magneto and Mystique in order to protect mutant kind. And just like in my last X-Men review, there are going to be a few minor spoilers throughout the video, so consider yourself warned. Alright, let's do this. What makes X2 one of the better sequels, and also one of my favorite comic book movies of all time, is that this film improves upon certain flaws that the first film had. For example, you might remember me saying in my first X-Men review that I felt that a lot of the characters weren't given enough depth or even really any moments to shine. And you can make the argument that certain characters still get the shaft once in a while, but in my opinion, each of the central characters, focus on that, even the central characters, get at least one or two scenes that belong strictly to them, and they are really fun to watch, and you can also quickly understand these characters just through those moments. Nightcrawler not only has that cool sequence where he teleports throughout the White House, but he's also given a sense of Catholic guilt that is displayed through his scarification marks on his body, one for every sin. And he is able to confide in Storm, who is very much able to motivate him to keep his faith, and that's one of the more interesting subplots throughout the movie. Pyro is a completely unlikable character from the very first scene he's in the museum, but there is a moment at Iceman's house where we see him looking at a family portrait, and just like that, we can understand why he acts the way he is. He has no one there to support him. He feels that everyone hates him for being a mutant. And when Magneto later on motivates him in a father-like way, where he says, "You're a god among insects, never let anyone tell you otherwise," it makes total sense why he becomes a part of the Brotherhood of Mutants at the very end. The action sequences have also really stepped up in terms of choreography and effects. And Bryan Singer made sure, just like the first one, to be as practical as possible. Moments like Pyro blowing up police cars or the X-Mansion being attacked, they all look really real and have very cool, genuine stunts. It really does look like they blew up and lifted a police car. And when Iceman freezes a wall in front of Wolverine and Stryker, the cool thing is that they actually used a 3,500-pound block of ice just for that scene. Boy, that must have been really hard to get in. And the fight between Wolverine and Lady Deathstrike? It is worth seeing this movie just for that scene on its own. That is honestly the money shot for me. The choreography is quick and gritty, their claws look photorealistic, and it is cool to see Wolverine fight someone who, for once, is evenly matched. Not just him fighting Magneto. You can actually see him fighting someone who is on par and has similar skills as he does. Even Rogue is given a couple of good badass scenes. Like, for one, when she takes Pyro's powers away because he's destroying everything and nearly killing everyone, she actually does something pretty cool. She uses those powers to put out the flames and save people who could have been killed, which is really awesome to see her doing something very useful, because in the first movie, she comes off more as a complete damsel in distress, and here she actually does one or two things that do help the team and do help other people. But as I rewatched X2, I did notice a few flaws that I hadn't noticed before in previous years. For one, just like the first film, there does feel like an overabundance of exposition, mainly over how Stryker is able to use Xavier to kill off mutant kind. Also, the way they set up Jean Grey to become Phoenix for The Last Stand, it does feel slightly forced, as was the love triangle between her, Logan, and Cyclops, which... why is that even in there? It really doesn't serve any purpose. The other main issue is that Stryker himself isn't really that interesting of a villain. You are given a bit of a backstory about his wife and son that make us kind of understand why he hates mutants, but you never really feel the weight of that backstory, considering he's mostly just there to tell others how to carry out his evil plan. In fact, I think Lady Deathstrike is more of an interesting character, because as a henchwoman, she does her job well, and there are other things like her claws and her healing factor and her brainwashed abilities that you kind of wonder, who is she? How did she become a mutant and stuff like that? And she's along the lines of Mystique, where she's more interesting because we don't know that much about her. And I kind of wish we had a little bit of that with Stryker, but all in all, it feels a bit like a nitpick as opposed to an actual flaw, because He is physically imposing, and Brian Cox does do a good job as Stryker. I just would have liked to have a little more of an understanding. All in all, X2 has much more depth and standout moments for the other X-Men. The action scenes are a lot more ambitious and a lot more fun to watch. And the themes from the first film are actually still pretty prevalent in the sequel. And for that reason, I am going to give X2, X-Men United, a 4 out of 5. Guys, thanks as always for watching. Be sure to check out my other reviews at NoPerfectMovie.com. Be sure to like, subscribe, share. Have a nice day.